Hey guys, welcome to the channel. As you see in the thumbnail, what if Deku is son of the midnight part 1. Before I start, please do support for more awesome content and subscribe my channel and like this video and also share this video with your friends. I have created my other videos playlist, there you can watch my all videos easily, check out as well. Let's start this video. Izuku has just been born as the son of number 2 hero Endeavor and Namuri Kayama. This wouldn't be a problem if Namuri wasn't a 15-year-old aspiring hero who plans on entering the US high school as a recommended student, and if Endeavor didn't have a wife with 3, soon to be 4, children. As a child, Namuri had a strong sense of justice and an urge to save people, however, she realized that her quirk, while very useful, wouldn't be very helpful in a hero school entrance exam. Her quirk, Somnambulist, allows her to put people to sleep by exuding a sleep-inducing aroma from her body. She thought that her quirk would be perfect for apprehending villains, but she also knew that many hero schools used robots in their entrance exams, and she was essentially quirkless if she was fighting robots. UA High may have been the preeminent hero school of Japan, but its entrance exam was especially skewed towards physical and flashy quirks. However, the improbability of her getting into UA or any other high-profile hero school wasn't enough to suppress her interest in heroics. Because of this, she often found herself dutifully following villain encounters. One of these specific villain encounters came as she was a 14-year-old in early October. Namuri had found herself wandering around, subconsciously walking towards an ignition of flames. As she arrived at the scene, she found that her favorite hero, Endeavor, was talking to a villain with a hardening quirk who had a hostage with him. Despite not having a license, Namuri knew she had a quirk that could help out in this instance, so she asked some of the riot officers if she could use it to help out. After a relatively quick discussion, they agreed to let her use her quirk. A few seconds of calming herself down, and armed with a suitable plan that both she and the officers were comfortable with, Namuri steps forward, ready to use her quirk to knock out the villain. As she advances, Namuri removes her jacket, revealing a very appealing figure and a skin-tight spandex suit with a hole cut out near her wrist. She subtly aims her wrist towards the ground as a pink, smoky substance begins to spread out and converge around the villain. Within seconds, both the villain and the hostage become drowsy and get knocked out. After the smoke clears, Endeavor goes forward to secure the villain, leaving the hostage to the police. Once the villain was in quirk-suppressing handcuffs, Endeavor walks over to Namuri. Endeavor hated thinking about his family. After all the good he had done for the world, he had nothing to be proud of at his home. He married his wife mostly because of her quirk, and when he realized he wasn't close to becoming the number 1 hero, he made it his goal to create the perfect fighting machine who would be capable of beating All Might. As of now, none of his children even had his quirk in its entirety. They weren't even close to having the perfect combination of both his and his wife's, but Endeavor didn't want to think about that right now. He wanted to get the girl who just knocked out the villain to come to a hotel with him, and judging by her constant glances and subsequent blushing when he would look her way, he knew that she would accept. When Endeavor does ask for Namuri to spend the night, it wasn't a surprise when she accepted. Namuri was ecstatic. She was going to hang out with a hero she had a crush on after she had helped him in a hostage situation. She wasn't 100% sure why he wanted her to come with him, but she wasn't dense and was excited by those prospects. When they get to the hotel room, Endeavor surprises Namuri with a question about her quirk. After she explains it to him thoroughly enough to satisfy, he asks about how she thinks their combined quirks would manifest in a potential child. While this line of questioning was unusual to Namuri, she again answers until he appears satisfied. Endeavor was originally planning on listening to what Namuri had to say, but he ended up not caring that much. Endeavor rarely cheated on his wife, this would only be the 3rd time, but for some reason, he was in a foul mood. This foul mood made him careless. He had always made sure that he never got a girl pregnant, but he was too driven for him to ever stop thinking of ways to surpass All Might. After his first 3 children failed to develop the perfect quirk combination, Endeavor was starting to think that his choice in spouse might have been poor. Something about tonight made him think deeply about his legacy. Maybe it was the recent test to check his son's quirk factor, or maybe it was the tall busty woman in front of him. He starts seriously thinking about combining quirks. Perhaps my wife's quirk and my own are too opposite for us to have created the perfect child as I have imagined we would have. When Fayumi was born and I saw her hair, I thought that our first child would be able to wield both fire and ice. I was so disappointed when it was just watered down ice. Natsuo was a little better. He has the ability to fully yield ice, but he has no fire in him, literally or metaphorically. It doesn't help that he has none of my quirk factor in him, so his ice is barely stronger than Rei's. He could probably be a decent hero, but his ice quirk would never get him in the top 10. There is very little of me in that child, so he is not worth my time. His twin brother Tuya might have some potential. It all depends on whether or not he can build up his heat resistance. His quirk is still not as strong as mine, but with me training him, he could crack the top 10. He lacks the same level of pyrokinesis that I have, but his fire is slightly hotter. Too bad we can't kill every villain we see. He does have the drive to be a hero, but that can only get him so far, and his drive could fade as he faces real challenges. Nevertheless, I might have to train him if my super soldier child never happens. Fuck, maybe I need to stop thinking of good quirk combinations and start just creating children. I have a wife and children, so I can't just find a new wife if I want to keep my spot as the number 2 hero. Fuck that. I don't care what anyone thinks of me. I want to be the strongest. Maybe I'm too caught up in focusing on the quirks itself instead of the child. Either way, I hope my next child has my quirk factor along with mine and my wife's quirk. My legacy has to be more than All Might's number 2. Endeavor's thought process was interrupted by a seductive and eager Namuri. Are we gonna do this, or what? Endeavor grumbles a response, hold on for a bit, I'm just getting ready. He goes back into his train of thought. Now back to the current situation. She's very attractive, well endowed, and tall. If we had a boy he would probably grow up to be at least my height. In regards to this potential child's quirk, I guess the best combination would be to take after me while also being able to use and control the sleeping gas in a similar manner to what I am capable of. I guess with me as a parent, any child could be a top hero. But that thought, I think it's about time to start. In this momentary lapse of judgment, Endeavor decides to not use a condom. Time skip to a week later. Endeavor receives a call from an unknown number. He responds in a rough tone, who is this and how did you get this number? Namuri responds, it's been a week and you already forgot about me? I'm pregnant. And she angrily hangs up. Time skip to 8 months later. Endeavor has become increasingly anxious about his supposed bastard child. Not wanting to let having an illegitimate child ruin his reputation, he decides to use his immense influence for some good old-fashioned blackmail. He decides to call in one of his favors and sets up a meeting with Nezu. Endeavor and Nezu are speaking in a room inside UA. Nezu, are you sure you want to recommend this student? Any reason why? Endeavor. She has a good quirk that wouldn't get her past the entrance exam. Nezu. You have never cared about the unfairness of the entrance exam before. Why should I believe you have no ulterior motive? Why do you choose to remain anonymous as her sponsor? Endeavor thinks. I can't bully or outsmart this guy or bear a mouse or whatever, I'll just have to give him a suitable answer that he'll accept. I want her to think that she got in on her own accord and I don't want the teachers to think any differently of her. Nezu, you know as well as I do that the teachers don't care about how a student gets in. As long as the students are worthy, the teachers will raise the next generation of heroes to the best of their abilities. Endeavor. Fuck, I knew that wouldn't work, but I had to try it. I'll just tell him most of the truth. He's smart enough to know not to pry, and I've earned a favor from the UA with all the money I've given and all the cases I've resolved. I don't want this student to know that I or any hero influenced her admission. I do have ulterior motives for wanting this student in. It would be in my best interest to have her admitted to this school. I have my reasons for wanting to remain anonymous and I won't tell you explicitly what they are. I would have other ways of getting rid of this problem, but this girl could become a legitimate and useful hero. While my main reason for getting this girl into this school isn't to improve her society, she will surely do so and will have extreme motivation to excel while at the school. But the amount of money I have donated and with my status as the number 2 hero, this society needs me to be one of its pillars. Having this girl in the UA will make my life much easier. You are smart enough to know that we don't live in an ideal world. I know that you have standards and I can assure you that my reasons for wanting her in the school aren't too bad. We would both be better off if you don't look into the exact reasons for me wanting her to be a hero so you can feign ignorance to the reasons if they ever do pop up. Nezu. It's about time you were honest with me. You should know that trying to trick me is useless. I agree with the points you have made and I will agree to give Namuri Kayama one of the recommended slots regardless of what I think of her. I do very much appreciate the work you put in as a hero and the money you donate and raise for this school. Just know that I won't do these favors all the time, so stay out of trouble. How do you recommend letting Ms. Kayama know that she has been chosen as a recommended student? Namuri is alone in the hospital room. Her parents had been dead for a while and she had recently isolated herself from her friends. I only have 1 month until my interview with Nezu. What am I supposed to do with the kid? I was going to keep it, but now I don't know what to do. All my life, I wanted to be a hero who could save lives and now I have the perfect chance. The acceptance rate for UA was 0.3% and only the top applicants dared to apply. There was no way I could pass on this opportunity that so many would desperately want. With a recommendation to the top hero school, I could follow my calling. Unfortunately, this also means that I wouldn't be able to be a good parent. Being a hero is a very dangerous job with unpredictable hours. I barely deserved the recommendation in the first place and doubt that I could keep up in such an intense school while raising a child. Namuri just stays in the hospital bed with a newborn Izuku comfortably sleeping in her arms as she contemplates what to do. A few hours later, Namuri gets a call from Endeavor. While she is surprised and a bit spooked that he somehow knows about Izuku's birth within hours, she's happy nonetheless that he contacted her. However, any happiness that comes with the unexpected call from the child's biological father vanishes as soon as Endeavor starts speaking. Endeavor. Listen, from the same sources that informed me that you gave birth, I also know that you got recommended for UA. That is an opportunity that you can't pass up. For the sake of both of our hero careers, it would be best if you gave up the child. I'm the number 2 hero, and society relies on me to be a pillar. No one can know of my affair and the fact that I have an illegitimate child. You can't raise that child and be a hero at the same time. It would not be safe for the child and you would be unable to provide for him. I am sorry that I got you pregnant, but society needs me to maintain my public image. I will pay for any expenses due to the pregnancy as well as give you any other money you might need. I doubt you need any more reasons, but if villains ever found out that I had an illegitimate child, they would take him as a hostage. I guarantee that it would be in your and the kid's best interest if you gave him up. And with that, Endeavor hangs up, offering no explanation on anything and no assurances on the baby's safety if Namuri does decide to keep it. His tone made this seem like a demand rather than the suggestion that it actually was. While Namuri knew that being a hero would make raising a child hard, she now fears for this child's potential safety, and she wasn't sure if that threat was from villains or from Endeavor himself. Either way, she is convinced it would be in the child's best interest if she gives him up for adoption. Namuri takes a year off after the birth to get her body back into hero shape and to redo her studies, which she mostly ignored. Time skipped to shortly after the start of Namuri's second semester in her first year at UA. Namuri, now Midnight, Eraserhead, and Present Mick are sitting together during lunch like they usually do. Present Mick and Eraserhead were polar opposites yet instantly became friends, and within days, Midnight joined in on their amusing friendship. Midnight's risque and provocative personality fit in perfectly with Present Mick's impulsive and outgoing nature and Eraserhead's indifference towards everything. Pretty soon, these friends turned into good friends and shortly thereafter, best friends. The trio was inseparable, spending nearly all of their free time together. In the short time that they had spent together, the group had gotten to know each other pretty well. Because they knew each other so well, Eraserhead and Present Mick knew that something was wrong with Midnight and they knew it had been eating at her for a while now. All the harassing calls and pseudo-threats from Endeavor have finally started to become less frequent. Midnight is still a bit uncomfortable with revealing her situation to her best friends. She knows she needs advice on how to deal with her problem, yet she doesn't want her friends to look at her differently. Lost in her own thoughts, she abruptly stands up and asks her 2 best friends to meet her on the roof once they are done with lunch. Terrified with what her friends would think about her knowing she had a kid, Midnight is visibly shaking as she walks up the stairs to the roof. Midnight realizes just how guilty she feels from giving up Izuku and how much Endeavor's presence makes her life miserable. She knows she needs to get this off her chest, no matter how uncomfortable it makes her. It takes the next 5 minutes of compassing herself before the creaking of the door and the sound of footsteps distracts her from the trance she was in. Present Mick starts the talking in the softest tone he can muster. Hey, what's bothering you? You haven't seemed like yourself since the semester started, which has been the entirety of our friendship. Eraserhead. I concur, you haven't been acting rationally for a while and we would have approached you soon if your behavior didn't change. You constantly seem distracted and it is only getting worse. Midnight. I am distracted and scared, not for my safety, for someone else's. I have a secret to tell you. I have, or at least had a child, a baby boy named Izuku, and I gave him up for adoption because I got recommended for UA. Eraserhead. Are you scared that people will find out that you have a child or is there something else? Midnight. I'm only a little worried that people would know that I have a child. I don't really care that much about the public knowing that I had a child this young. As long as the public doesn't know who specifically the child is. I really hid the fact that I had a child because I was ashamed that I had to give him up and because I was concerned for his safety. I really didn't want to give the kid up, but this line of work is too dangerous to half-ass, and making the kid an orphan by having a dead mother is the only thing worse than putting him in an orphanage. I'm more concerned with the identity of the father. Present Mick. And the father is? Midnight. That's the fun part. The father of my child is the number 2 hero, Endeavor. Eraserhead and Present Mick both gasp upon hearing who the father is. It takes a few seconds before Eraserhead composes himself and speaks. Eraserhead. Well, I can see why that is a problem, given that he has a wife and 4 kids. I don't know why you're scared. Midnight. I'm scared for the safety of the child. I think Endeavor would do something to the kid to make sure the child is kept a secret from the public. Eraserhead. Now that's not rational. Present Mick. I have to agree with Eraserhead here. Well, it would definitely be in Endeavor's best interest to keep this child from becoming public knowledge. He's probably taking steps to ensure this child's safety right now. He might be an ass, but he's a hero at heart. Eraserhead. While his motivations for becoming a hero are unknown, he would never go after a kid just to protect his reputation. If you feel guilty about giving up the kid, why don't you make sure he is okay? Just check on him to ease your worries. Make sure the kid is happy and continue to keep him a secret from anyone you don't trust entirely. Midnight. Will you guys come with me to check on him? I'm gonna need some emotional support when I do it. Present Mick. Of course. That weekend Present Mick, Eraserhead, and Midnight went to the adoption agency. They stop at a fancy coffee place beforehand, and Eraserhead and Present Mick say that Midnight should go on ahead without them. Present Mick. You should go on without us. It would be suspicious if 3 UA students go into the adoption agency. If we're gonna go full paranoid about this, someone might think we have a connection to one of the kids. You dig? Midnight nods nervously and walks forward without them. Entering the orphanage, Midnight is immediately ambushed by the person working at the front desk. Hey, we're short-staffed today. I saw you at the UA Sports Festival, and these kids love heroes. I know I can trust you. Would you mind watching them for the day? I'll stay in the front, and I'll help you if you need anything, but I could really use the help. Midnight beams at the question. I was hoping to play with the kids when I came. I would love to. Midnight walks into a room filled with kids up to the age of 5. They were all playing together happily. As soon as she closes the door, a boy with a huge clump of fiery red hair rushes her, grabbing onto her leg. The kid screams in excitement, "You're Midnight, a real hero. I saw you at the sports festival." Surprised by the kid's comment, Midnight looks over the kid. Looks much bigger than he sounds. He looks 3.5 feet tall minus the hair. When Midnight finishes scanning the kid, she does a surprise double take and gasps. That kid he can't be, he's way too big, but he has to be. Small tears of joy began to form at the corners of her eyes as her train of thought got interrupted by the same kid's adorable voice. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to make you cry. I just get really excited when I see heroes." Recognizing the kid's disappointment, Midnight quickly flashes the biggest smile she could. "I'm just really happy you know who I am." Her suspicions are confirmed when she hears a kid in the background say, "Wow, Izuku, you're so cool." You were able to recognize her right away. A different kid chimed in. "Yeah, wow, how did you do it?" Izuku just grins, loving all the attention he was getting, still yet to have let go of Midnight's leg. Midnight loved having her child hanging on her, even if he didn't know that she was his mom. As discreetly as she could, Midnight snaps a picture of Izuku and sends it to Present Mick and Eraserhead with the caption, "This is the little guy, love him already, I'll be here for 10 more hours." But the text sent, Midnight returns to playing with Izuku and his friends. A few hours into their playing, Izuku wants to know how Midnight's quirk works. After some prodding, she agrees to show her quirk to the kids. She announces to the room, "I'll let you see my quirk at nap time. I'll even use it on you guys." With that, all the kids erupt in cheer. They were so excited to see a real hero use their quirk. Once nap time comes, all the kids scurry to their sleeping bags to see Midnight's quirk in action. After preparing the kids, Midnight lifts a panel on her sleeve and releases her pink smoke to spread throughout the room. Pretty soon it appeared as if all of the kids were in a peaceful slumber. Midnight stands up to let the person at the front know that the kids are asleep when she hears crying from one of the children. Turning around, she sees none other than Izuku looking like he is about to throw a tantrum. Her maternal instincts quickly set in as she rushes over to comfort him. "What's wrong?" He quickly responded in muffled sobs, "Yo, your quirk, didn't work on me." "Why didn't it work?" Midnight pauses for a second before calmly responding, "My quirk doesn't affect everyone exactly the same. I don't know why it does, but it doesn't mean anything is wrong with you. Plus, since you're the only one awake, you get the special midnight sleep treatment." Izuku quickly perks up a little upon hearing those words before drying the tears from his eyes. Finally done with crying, Izuku asks, "What's the special midnight sleep treatment?" Midnight pauses for a second before responding, "I will snuggle you until you fall asleep." Right as she finishes talking, an excited Izuku squeals, "Really? Lem, get my All Might plush toy first." Izuku quickly scampers away before Midnight could warn him about waking up the other children. Seeing Izuku in the doorway, Midnight melts at the cuteness of the sight. Izuku is clutching an All Might toy that is almost as big as him, fiercely protecting it from a non-existent threat much like a mother bear would if something approached her cubs. Once Izuku gets to his sleeping bag, he motions for Midnight to lay down next to him. Midnight's mind goes into overdrive at this point. She is ecstatic that she could hold her kid once more. She had yearned for this moment the second she realized she would have to give the kid up for adoption. Midnight lays down as Izuku turns over in his sleeping bag to get into a comfortable position. Izuku squeezes his All Might toy as he finally closes his eyes. He shuffles closer to Midnight as she hugs him. She holds the boy with such care and admiration, all she feels is bliss. Her mind is empty other than the thought that everything felt right. Within a few minutes, Izuku falls asleep and Midnight shortly follows suit. A few hours later, a groggy Midnight wakes up to the sound of the door opening and the worker at the front telling all the kids that nap time is over. Briefly orienting herself, Midnight notices the mound of hair in front of her head. She ruffles Izuku's hair a little before kissing him on the forehead and telling him that it's time to wake up. Izuku's vision is blurry as he wakes up from the contact to his forehead. Turning around, Midnight was there just smiling at him. He has a fuzzy feeling inside, feeling as if an unknown void has been filled. Izuku stumbles while trying to stand up and bows at Midnight. "Thank you for helping me fall asleep, Ms. Midnight." Up until now, this encounter had gone exactly as Midnight had planned. She fell in love with Izuku as soon as she laid eyes on him, but she had to remember that she wasn't currently Izuku's mother, and the fact that he called her Ms. was a harsh reminder of that. She mentally sighs before responding, "Anything for you." Izuku seemed satisfied with this response, so he ran off to eat and play with friends. Despite the fun, Midnight knows that she has to get back home. She realizes that she couldn't half-ass play mom, and if she didn't put her all into her studies and training, she could end up dying on the battlefield. As Midnight readies herself to leave, the girl at the front desk went to thank her for coming. "I saw you sleeping next to Izuku. He's such a great kid already. Only 2 years old yet he brightens up the world. I know that this is an orphanage, but having Izuku here makes this place seem like so much more to these kids. I almost don't want him to get adopted because he seems so happy and he makes all the kids love their time here. I feel like this place would fall apart if he left. I feel horrible for whoever his biological parents are. I can't imagine the situation that would force them to get rid of that bowl of sunshine." Sorry for that little speech there. Thank you so much for coming. I'm sure it meant a lot to the kids to have a hero come here. With that, Midnight leaves, getting some well-needed closure over Izuku's happiness. Once Midnight gets home, she FaceTimes present Mick and Eraserhead. Present Mick. "So how'd it go?" Midnight. "The kid is perfect and during nap time he fell asleep in my arms." Present Mick. "OMG so cute, did you manage to get a pic?" Midnight. "Unfortunately not, I was so happy in the moment I wasn't thinking about anything else. I don't have anything to show you other than the picture of him hanging on my leg." Eraserhead. "Has visiting him given you some closure on your final decision?" Midnight. "Yeah, I could never bring myself to take that kid from there. He is way too happy and all the kids like him way too much for me to ever put him in danger. Maybe when I have a stable job when he is older I may take him back, but until then, I won't so much as visit him. If he has a family by then, I will happily leave him be." Present Mick. "Hopefully that picture you have of him will be enough to get you by until then. You definitely have someone you want to protect and he can be your motivation as a hero. Remember this, if you're just gonna half-ass this hero work, there would have been no point in giving the kid up for adoption." Midnight simply smiles and nods before hanging up. Time skipped to near the end of Midnight's final semester in her final year of UA. Izuku's POV. "It used to be all fun and happy here, what happened? Once everyone starts getting their quirks, that's all people focus on. Why does everyone only care about quirks? The doctor said my quirk will develop soon, but being quirkless sucks right now. I really feel bad for all the kids that are quirkless. What sort of harassment will they face just because of how they were born? I wonder how many parents took X-rays of the children and gave up the children that didn't have quirks. Sometimes I wonder if the world would be better off without quirks." Elsewhere. Ayumi Todoroki barges into Endeavor's training room. Endeavor immediately stops what he is doing to scowl at her. "This better be important, Fayumi, you know not to interrupt me." Almost ignoring her father's words, Fayumi responds, "Come quick and look, Shadow's quirk is manifesting. It's just like you thought, it looks like it's both fire and ice." Endeavor responds, "Quick, where is he?" "He's just outside the flower garden." "This is great news, go get your mother and tell her to come." Endeavor runs as fast as he can to the flower garden, using his quirk to increase his speed. Got to be careful with that. It would be pretty ironic if I'm the one to burn the house down the day my son's fire quirk first appears. When Endeavor finally gets to the flower garden he sees Tuya and Natsuo on Shoto's left and right sides respectively, trying to show him how they use their quirks. He hears Natsuo tell Shoto to try and imagine pushing cold out on his right side and pushing heat out on his left. Eyes start shooting out of Shoto's right side and flames come out his left. Endeavor has finally done it, he has created the perfect child. Later that day, Endeavor is speaking on the phone to his sidekick Blaze. Endeavor. Blaze, your assignment of patrolling the area near the orphanage is over. Blaze. Endeavor, is there a reason that you don't want me to continue watching the orphanage? Endeavor. The woman hasn't come in over 2.5 years and I don't believe the child's safety is at risk. At this point, having one of my men there puts the kid at more risk now that I am almost certain that no one knows that Izuku is my own child. I could also use your help training Shoto. Blaze. Does that mean he has manifested quirk? Endeavor. Indeed it does, that child is a prodigy. Blaze. That's incredible, he's not even 4 yet and he already has his quirk. Endeavor. We will start training at once. Considering your mission of protecting Izuku a success, I'm sure he will have a relatively normal and safe childhood. We see a dark room, illuminated only by the light of a couple of computer screens and some dim flickering lights. There are several people wearing bird masks chatting quietly to each other. The second the leader starts speaking, everybody else goes completely silent. Overhaul looks at his underlings and begins speaking, we're gonna need a test subject for Trigger and the quirk erasing bullets we have in development. What we are going to do is kidnap a kid. This child needs to be younger than 5 years old and yet to have manifested their quirk, yet the kid needs to have clear signs he is gonna have a quirk. This needs to be a kid that can vanish from the system. Luckily for us, I already have a kid in mind. In a room with 6 monitors, a picture of Izuku shows up on the top left monitor, while the other monitors have Izuku's vital information and incident files. Overhaul pulls up one of these digital files on Izuku and reads what shows up. Mysteriously left at the orphanage by an unknown person. Will develop a quirk soon, 95% chance within 3 to 6 months. Above average intelligence. Well above average physical abilities. Very tall for age. Overhaul. Well, this kid is clearly promising, the main reason I want to take him is that there is something on his file that would make him very easy to abduct, rather something lacking on his file. Despite all the gifts this child possesses, he has somehow managed to not get adopted and he hasn't gotten a visitor in over 8 months. For some reason, it seems like this orphanage doesn't want him to get adopted. Not only can we make this kid disappear, but we might also be able to make him sympathetic to our cause in due time. Overhaul continues, none of you maggots can be trusted with a job of this much importance. I will secure the child and bring him back tonight. Overhaul looks at his main assistant Chronostasis, changes the kid's file to make him quirkless and gives him a history of running away. In this stupid society, quirks are prioritized over people. No one cares about the person or their actions, making this kid quirkless will ensure that the authorities are less likely to care about him. A quirkless kid with emotional issues who is constantly running away won't even make the front page. After a week this kid will have disappeared completely. Also, don't forget to intimidate the attendant a little bit. I'll make sure she is completely silent, but you need to get her a little on edge. Chronostasis, anything for you sir. I will let you know when the files are switched and then you can start the retrieval. 2.5 hours later. Chronostasis. Overhaul, I have snuck in and switched their paper files with our files. Also, as expected, the hack was successful, so their digital files also reflect the changes that you desire. You are in the clear to take the kid. Overhaul grunts in approval and leaves the room. Izuku is walking around in the forest when a shadow covers his own. As he turns around his world goes dark. Izuku wakes up momentarily freaking out thinking he has died, but notices that he isn't in pain. In the movies when you wake up in a dark room thinking you've died, your head is supposed to hurt, but I actually feel great. Izuku tries to think about why he is in this situation and panics once more. He notices the heavy metal chains pulling him down from his ankles and wrists and he realizes that the room he's in isn't just dark, it's pitch black. No light is entering the room at all. In another room, Izuku appears on a monitor slowly acclimating himself to his situation and getting progressively more restless. Overhaul. I guess the new kid has woken up. Better tell him about his new life here. I let him know that rebellion isn't tolerated. I'm gonna inject him with Trigger, maybe he won't even struggle much. I'm hoping with Trigger, his quirk will be forcefully activated. Overhaul leaves the monitor room and enters the room Izuku is in. He turns on the light and stares to face Izuku. Overhaul. I'm gonna explain to you why you are here right now. You will let me finish without speaking. Understand? Izuku nods, still unsure of what's going on, too scared to say anything that might worsen his already bad situation. Overhaul. Good, you seem like you learn quickly. That'll do you some good if you want to survive here. First, we have a clear pecking order here. While the chain of command shouldn't matter to you as you are below everyone, all you need to know is that I am at the top and Chronostasis is in charge when I am gone. Second, and this should be obvious, you will not make any attempts to escape or try to contact the outside world. We run a tight operation here and getting caught would make things very hard. Also, if you escape, we will just get another child. You would be directly responsible for the kidnapping of another child if that happens. Third, the reason you are here is to be the test subject for quirk-related drugs we are trying to produce. Well, these drugs are illegal, and we don't care for your emotional state. My quirk will fix your physical problems so you should develop normally and you should be able to go on and live a normal life if we ever let you go. This operation is very special to me. We live in a society where there is an unnatural and unhealthy obsession and reliance on quirks. I plan on erasing quirks and controlling the criminal underground. If you have any questions, ask me now, otherwise we will start our testing. Izuku is terrified but still manages to stammer out a response. I don't have any questions, but I do have a few requests. Given that I'll be used as a test subject, it would be in your best interest to have me in good shape, correct? Overhaul growls, get to the point. Izuku. I just want to make sure that I am well fed and that you let me have access to a computer. Even though I am going to be locked in here, I would like to be allowed to learn. Overhaul, that I can do, so long as you make no attempt at escape. I will arrange for you to be taught standard curriculum. Just know I will make your life much harder if you aren't obedient. We will get started now. The first step to our quirk testing will be to get your quirk to manifest. I know you were raised in an orphanage and you don't know anything about what your quirk may be. I will inject you with trigger and your quirk will almost definitely show itself. Not that it matters to you, but we've never actually used this on a child before their quirk manifested. We've never actually used this at all. Overhaul swiftly stabs Izuku in the thigh before he could protest. Izuku lets out a monster scream of pain before he yanks on the chains holding him. His body is fighting against itself as trigger spreads through every inch of his being. There is unbearable pain near his wrists and ankles as he realizes that any contact with his skin feels like the sting of a bullet ant. Izuku feels a burning sensation take over his entire body and he releases it to the fullest extent. The fiery inferno destroys everything around Izuku as the chains are vaporized by the heat. As the fire begins to go back into Izuku's body, a cloud of smoke is released from Izuku's skin. All of this seems to be too much for the kid as shortly thereafter, Izuku succumbs to exhaustion and collapses. What Izuku doesn't know is that Overhaul is at the other end of the room, unconscious, with several burn marks throughout his body as well. Overhaul is the first of the two to wake up, regaining consciousness mere seconds after the explosion. While Overhaul knew the explosion of the fire was searing and powerful, he knew that alone shouldn't have knocked him out. He wondered whether the smoke that Izuku produced had some sort of sleeping agent inside of it. He knew that his question could be answered with a comprehensive test on Izuku's body. Overhaul looked at the monitor, and 3 lower Yakuza members immediately ran into the testing room with surgical tools and medical equipment. This next paragraph depicts mutilation. If you are bothered by that, start reading after the next bold. The 3 members begin to surround Izuku, and after moving him to his bed, begin to take out parts of his body. One member takes out a scalpel and begins to cut a strip out of Izuku's arm. He takes 2 more strips of skin and muscle before moving on to the legs. 2 strips below the knee and 2 strips from the thigh. As he is doing this, the second member begins to take blood samples from Izuku. The third member of the Yakuza that came to remove Izuku's tongue grimaced before asking Overhaul, "Do I have to? Don't you think this is a little too far?" Overhaul promptly responded whilst removing a glove, "You are not here to give your opinion. You know what happens to people who disobey my orders." That quickly shut up the third Yakuza as he proceeded to cut Izuku's tongue out. When the 3 members were done, they methodically placed all the removed samples and blood in separate sterile medical containers before leaving. The paragraph is over. Overhaul walks over to Izuku before touching him with the hand that was no longer in his glove. As soon as he makes contact, Izuku explodes, leaving viscera and bone shards in his stead before violently coming back together with his scars mostly healed and his tongue completely back to normal. A few minutes later, Izuku wakes up screaming. Clutching his legs and his mouth, he feels the most intense phantom pain he thought possible. He looks at Overhaul hoping for some sympathy, but instead, Overhaul completely dismisses him, just leaving a mask on the table. "I expect you to wear that whenever you are not in this room. Anytime you are out of this room you need to be accompanied with an expendable. Tomorrow before breakfast, Mimic will show you around as well as go over the details of your studies. Dinner will be brought to you at 6:30 and I expect you to be asleep by 8. Mimic will wake you up at 8 and you will have an hour to study and walk around the facility. Learn the changing floor plans. I will not say how, but I designed an advanced schedule that this compound runs on. Things won't be in the same place each day. I will be going now, fortunately for you, the worst pain has already come. Izuku is finally alone in a room and is given some time to absorb what has happened to him. He moves his arm, surprisingly grateful that he doesn't have restraints on. He looks around the room, where he will spend most of his time. The walls are perfectly white with a single picture of an unknown person hanging behind his bed. Once Izuku takes in his surroundings, he falls back on his bed. Finally calm enough to think, he breaks down crying. He is a lost 4-year-old who has been kidnapped and tested on in a span of a few hours. While the scarring isn't very apparent, Izuku does notice the scars along his arms and legs, along with phantom pain above those scars. He is utterly lost and hopeless. He can only hope the outside world will manage to find him soon. Izuku doesn't notice the food that has been put inside his door. He has long since cried himself to sleep. Hopefully, this will get easier with time. The next morning Izuku wakes up in a haze. Unsure if yesterday was just a horrible nightmare or not. He looks around and is immediately filled with dread. Izuku is still in the white room he remembers. All of his memories of yesterday rush back to him as he notices the single picture on the wall. But the flood of memories returning, Izuku also remembers the flames that he produced before passing out. Wondering if the flames were real, he tries to call upon them again. Feeling the familiar heat coursing through his body, Izuku erupts in flames, albeit much less intense than what he felt yesterday. Separate from the flames, Izuku feels a different sensation that he is trying to let loose. As he lets this escape, an unknown substance exits his forearms and the parts of his leg uncovered by his shorts. While Izuku is unaffected by this substance, he is able to deduce that this is some sort of poisonous gas. Looking at the clock on the wall, Izuku sees that it is 6:45 in the morning. He hears the familiar rumble of his stomach. From his physical and mental exhaustion the previous night, he hadn't thought about, nor had he wanted to eat. He now notices that his room has a fridge in it. The fridge is almost invisible as the spotless white fridge completely blends in with the white walls. Izuku opens the fridge to notice a huge serving of chicken and vegetables. Upon seeing the food, Izuku realizes that he is starving. He quickly eats it all before going back to working out the kinks of his quirk. Based on the scar patterns on his arms and legs, Izuku is able to deduce that while trigger powers up quirks, it probably doesn't power up the body's resistance to one's quirk. He wonders what all the current side effects of trigger are and what Overhaul's quirk is. At this moment he decides to start writing down descriptions of quirks and possible uses and counters to them. Izuku knows he won't be able to take down Overhaul and whatever this organization is anytime soon, but having a description of everyone here might help him someday. His thought process was interrupted as Mimic barged through the door. "Hey kid, I'm gonna show you around. This place is a maze and we've got to keep it that way. It's not gonna be easy, but you're gonna need to memorize the floor plans. One of the reasons we have you is so you can test trigger. Overhaul told me that once trigger is perfected, I could use it in a pinch and make this place very hard to invade. My quirk allows me to enter objects and control them. I would be able to enter the ground and move it around and make this labyrinth impossible to traverse for any potential invaders. Probably shouldn't have told you, but you're just 4. Izuku made a mental note of that before following Mimic outside. As he was about to leave his room, Mimic slaps him hard on his face causing him to fall. Izuku slowly gets back up, remembering how brutal this place is before weakly asking, "Would you do that?" Mimic quickly replied, "You were going to walk outside your room and defile the air that Overhaul breathes. How dare you?" Izuku walks back to the table next to his bed before begrudgingly putting it on. Izuku realizes right now that his childhood is over, that he won't ever be able to be a normal kid again. This mask shows that right now you can control me. Don't think I'll be your follower for long. Hopefully, you won't realize that I am taking notes on everything until it is too late. I will escape and I will take you down when the time's right. With even more conviction, a masked Izuku follows Mimic around the facilities. Izuku is surprised at the size of the area that Overhaul controls. This organization must be really clever if they could have this much land and still be completely unnoticed. Overhaul took many precautions and made just navigating this place near impossible. I will eventually find my way out and I'll escape once I know I have no chance of failure. Unfortunately for Izuku, he hadn't thought about why they needed a test dummy in the first place. He didn't realize that for several hours a day, he would have to go through the same torture he went through the first day, but worse. He didn't know the trigger was much less painful the first time because it was the first time he had ever activated his quirk. Izuku was also foolish enough to believe when Overhaul had said that his first night would be the worst pain he would experience as a test dummy. Izuku knew that it would only get worse before it got better, since all Izuku knew was Mimic's quirk and he had yet to memorize the floor plan. The getting worse part was the harsh realization that now that his fire quirk had manifested, trigger would make him burn himself. Izuku's young body had yet to get used to his extreme heat and he ended up with severe scarring within the first few days of testing Trigger. Izuku made sure to not let out the smoke that had sleeping properties as he thought that he could use the knockout gas he produced as a way to escape. The less they knew of his abilities, the better. However, all hope was not lost. The fact that Izuku knew Mimic's quirk at all meant that Overhaul didn't run a perfect system. Izuku's quirk is a combination of Endeavor's and Midnight's quirk. The fire part of the quirk is the dominant part of the quirk. Izuku is able to hide the sleeping gas because it is much weaker. I will go into more detail at the end of the chapter. The days begin to go by for Izuku as he tries to gather more information. The trigger sessions are still incredibly painful and getting disassembled and reassembled gets worse each time. He is never able to get used to it, but he could at least prepare himself. The education that Overhaul promised ended up just being books full of data that resembled a school's curriculum. Izuku had to teach himself everything he wanted to know, and he wouldn't be able to ask any questions about anything school-related, as the precepts of death thought it was pointless for a lab rat to have any knowledge. Within 3 weeks, Izuku had completely memorized the entirety of the floor plan. The pain and neglect that Izuku faced began to eat at him more and more. Soon enough, all happiness that Izuku had drained away. He yearns to see All Might's confident smile or just get a hug when he is sad. Not that long after, Izuku feels no need to speak. His words aren't valued, and he knows Overhaul's routines well enough to no longer need to ask any clarifying questions. After what feels like several months, Izuku had been around enough to find out what everybody's quirk is. He thought about acting like a robot to try and avoid supervision, but decided against it as he didn't want to be deemed defective and be killed and not reassembled. He lived in constant fear, thinking that acting too weird might get him killed. Izuku may have been miserable, and he had already lost all hope, but he didn't want to die, and he would not quit probing. Izuku decides to enact the next step in his plan, which is to see if there is a pattern to whoever watches him. He concludes the best way to do this is to stop his pseudo-rebellion by taking off the bird mask when he is alone in his room. Knowing that he is being watched at all times and keeping the bird mask on lets the precepts of death know that Izuku still holds some of his previous ideals. After keeping the mask on for 2 weeks, Izuku decides to start following some of the members around outside of his room. He realizes that the 8 expendables minus Rappa had a weekly rotation of following Izuku around. He soon realizes that he would likely need to fight one of the members if he wanted to escape, and he didn't like his current chance of winning. Izuku faced a harsh reality that he might need to use Trigger to escape, and so he'd have to go all out during Overhaul's experiments. As Izuku started to use his flame quirk to its full extent during his daily Trigger usage, he built up a surprisingly large pain tolerance and the ability to regulate his internal temperature. As much as Izuku hated to admit it, Trigger was making his quirk and heat resistance grew stronger at an unnatural rate. He was able to figure out that when Overhaul reassembled someone, all physical ailments that the person had would go away. Izuku figured that Overhaul disassembling and reassembling him ended up making his fire resistance way stronger. Izuku having a clear goal is the only thing stopping his depression from turning into a complete mental breakdown. His emotionless expression hides his feelings well, but he was not yet 5 and he felt immense sadness. He spends the next 2 years looking around the facilities before finally realizing that everyone follows a set routine. He didn't know how the Precepts members dealt with the monotony, but he realized that, with the exception of Rappa, all the members had resigned themselves as extensions of Overhaul. They would do all the dirty work that Overhaul didn't want to do, and they would give their lives to save him without question. It takes a while for Izuku to know that Rappa would be on his way out. It becomes obvious that Rappa is the weak link in an almost perfect cog. The only problem is that Izuku needs to figure out how to use this to his advantage. Fortunately for Izuku, while the passing time tries to slowly whittle away any possible happiness and hopes he once had, his older brain allows him to think more critically than his past 4-year-old self. Somewhere along the way, Izuku also realizes that he does not deserve the suffering. His worries over the guilt of trying to escape disappear as he deems it is unlikely that Overhaul would kidnap another child. After some further investigating, Izuku realizes that Rappa is the muscle of the group. While everyone there has some sort of role and does things to maintain the functioning of the group, Rappa is always either training or out of the facility. Somehow, Izuku manages to find out that Rappa is part of the Precepts because he fought Overhaul and lost. Overhaul reassembled Rappa on the promise that he could continue to train and try and fight Overhaul again as long as he joined the Precepts. Izuku finally figures out that in some way or another when Overhaul and Rappa fight again, there would be a disruption that might allow Izuku to escape. One uneventful day at the compound, Izuku finally gets his break. Izuku hears 2 expendables mention Rappa and he casually walks over to behind a wall where he can faintly hear the conversation. Overhaul and Rappa finally scheduled their rematch. It's on September 22nd at 6:30 in the morning. I don't know why we're planning this so ahead, the brat has never woken up a second before he should and has been a robot for years. I guess it is so everyone can watch. For the first time in years, Izuku feels something other than dread. A normal child would feel elated, but Izuku had long since stopped allowing positive thoughts to come. He finally has his way out. He knows he would have to continue acting like his emotionless self, but finally, he has something. He knows that Overhaul and Rappa have a rematch to fight on September 22nd at 6:30 in the morning and that everyone would be there to watch. Nobody knew that Izuku knew about this fight and that would be his time to escape. The days go by slowly and Izuku's 8th birthday comes and passes. Izuku figures that the precepts knew his birthday based on his file, yet Overhaul didn't once mention it. Izuku spent his birthday crying himself to sleep. He wanted help, he wanted a hero, he wanted to be saved. All Might Smile had helped him get this far, but he is still terrified of making his move. Izuku relies on All Might Smile once more. This may be his only chance to escape without direct confrontation for a while, and it took several years for this opportunity to show up. He would have to do this himself if he wanted freedom. He kept his whole act of having given up for years so he could be granted this one opportunity to escape. Soon enough, the night of September 21 had come and Izuku was terrified. He hadn't even been outside in nearly 3.5 years and he didn't know what he would do even if he did escape. While Izuku is terrified of Overhaul, he has spent nearly half of his life in his clutches. He didn't speak anymore, yet he knew he couldn't back out now. This might be the best chance he'll ever get. With his mind set on escaping, Izuku pretends to fall asleep and waits. Ryukyu, POV. The next morning Ryuko Tatsuma, Ryukyu, decides to wake up at 5 to get started on her patrolling extra early. Her friends told her that she should take the day off since it was her birthday, but that made her want to patrol even more. She got into the hero business with the goal of saving lives and she hadn't yet felt like she had done so. While she had a very powerful quirk, it was a very destructive one and many people were scared of it. Ryukyu didn't want a special party or a day off for her birthday, what she wanted more than anything was to help someone and change their life. Izuku, POV. The second the clock hit 6, Izuku shoots up. He knows that everything he worked for was for this day. He wouldn't dare to start a little later and risk getting caught during his escape. Izuku had worn that stupid bird mask for years just to get Overhaul to trust him a little more and his plan had finally paid off. The second the clock hit 6:25 Izuku opens his door and leaves his room. He had the layout of the hideout memorized since the first month he had been there and Izuku knew that nothing had changed. He knew that there was only one exit that he could use to escape and he knew that there was a point inside the compound where he could start running and not be heard. Izuku had every part of his escape planned to the second and the biggest uncertainties would be whether or not he would meet any resistance and who would he see once he got to the outside. Ryukyu, POV. Because it is her birthday, Ryukyu is allowed by her boss to deviate from her normal patrol route in order to possibly find more crime. She notices the time to be 6:38 in the morning as she turns left onto a sketchy street with a bunch of small closed stores. Izuku, POV. Izuku continued down the underground labyrinth as he reached a point where he knew he could no longer be heard. If Izuku had been counting the time correctly and he knew he was, then it had just turned 6:35. The fight would have started 5 minutes ago and Overhaul and Rappa would start using their quirks. Izuku didn't know how they matched up, so he knew that he had to start running now. Fortunately for Izuku, he knew he was far enough. Izuku ran as fast as he could, using his flame quirk to enhance his speed. He left his sleeping gas along the hallways to make it more difficult for him to be followed. After exactly 3 minutes, Izuku reaches a door. He opens it slightly and peeks in to make sure that no one is there before entering the room and closing the door behind him. Izuku pays no attention to whatever is in the room as he sees lines of light from the outside world, making it through the closed shades on the other side of the room. Upon closer inspection, he sees that the light is from the sun. Izuku lifts up the shades to see a door being all that stopped him from escaping. He wouldn't stop now. Despite how scared he is, he wouldn't let himself hesitate as he quickly scurries outside. Scanning the street for people, Izuku sees a person staring at him. He ran towards her as fast as he could. As soon as Ryukyu turns onto the street, she sees a kid desperately sprinting towards her. The kid is covered in burns along the totality of his arms and legs. He shows clear signs of abuse and his face is plastered with fear. The kid looks no older than 8 or 9, yet his eyes are completely devoid of happiness. Ryukyu's confusion mounts when, as soon as the kid reaches her, he desperately clutches her shirt. Ryukyu is unable to grasp exactly what is going on, but she knows enough to know that she has to take immediate action. She tightly hugs the kid and starts sprinting with him in her arms. Once Ryukyu is far enough away, she decides to call her boss to tell him that she found a distressed kid and that he should come to get them. Once all the commotion is over, Ryukyu realizes that she has a distressed kid with her, not just someone who needs saving. She doesn't know what to do, try, and calm down the kid, so she takes a line from All Might and says, "I don't know what happened to you, but you are safe now, I am here." As soon as Ryukyu utters that phrase, the kid finally smiles and breaks down crying. Izuku examines the person holding him. "I am going to trust her. She used All Might's catchphrase, she must be a hero. I trust her." He is so lost in his thoughts that he almost forgot about the bird mask that he was forced to wear is still on his face. Izuku pushes away from Ryukyu before ripping the mask from his face and igniting the hand that was holding the mask. The bird mask is almost immediately incinerated as the ashy remains from the mask crumble in Izuku's palm before falling to the ground. Izuku takes a step back before blasting the ashy remains on the ground once more with the hottest fireball he could muster. Ryukyu gets taken aback with the impressive display of fire before noticing the kid is trembling. Ryukyu didn't know what the meaning of the bird mask was, but decided to ignore the technically illegal public quirk cues. Instead, she kneels down so the kid could cry on her shoulder. Ryukyu and Izuku stay like this for several minutes before Izuku runs out of tears. Pretty soon, the members of Ryukyu's hero agency show up. Ryukyu leads Izuku into the company car where they sit in the third row together. Izuku refuses to let go of Ryukyu as they get into the car. Ryukyu decides now would be as good a time as ever to get some basic information from the kid, but Izuku thinks otherwise. Overwhelmed with emotions, Izuku dozes off, snuggling with Ryukyu's arm. Despite Ryukyu enjoying the admittedly cute kid hugging her arm, she knows she is going to need answers soon, but for now, she would let the kid sleep. Once they get to Ryukyu's hero agency, Ryukyu ruffles Izuku's hair to wake him up. His eyes shoot open as he gets oriented to his new surroundings. Ryukyu motions for Izuku to come with her and he sheepishly follows behind her, stumbling as he rushes to hold her hand. I can't help but feel bad for the kid. It's kind of nice for him to be so clingy though, most kids think I'm scary because of my quirk. I guess he hasn't seen my quirk yet. Even if I didn't do much, maybe I kind of saved this kid. Ryukyu's thought process is interrupted by the kid's scared voice. "Do we have to go inside? I want to see the outside." Ryukyu responds, "We don't have to go inside if you don't want to, but I think it would be much more comfortable for us to sit on some nice furniture together. I will make sure the room has many windows." That response along with Ryukyu's caring voice seems to calm down Izuku's nerves as he nods and follows Ryukyu to her boss's office. Izuku sits down on a soft couch next to Ryukyu as several people come through the doors. While the heroes try to create a relaxed environment, Izuku becomes overwhelmed by the number of people and begins to cower behind Ryukyu. Ryukyu's boss, Bones, notices Izuku cowering and turns to Ryukyu. "Would it be easier for you if everyone except for her left?" Izuku nods so the rest of the heroes get up and leave. This does wonders for Izuku's well-being as overhaul, and the rest of the Yakuza never did anything to make him more comfortable. Ryukyu finally starts with a question. "Hey kid, how old are you?" Izuku begins counting on his fingers before he holds up 8 fingers. "So you're 8 years old." Izuku nods. "What's your name?" Izuku. "Do you have a last name?" "No." "Do you have parents or a family?" "I was an orphan." "What were you doing when you saw me?" "I was escaping." "Escaping what?" "Overhaul." "Who's that?" "The guy who kidnapped me." "When were you kidnapped?" "Around 4 years ago." Ryukyu notices Izuku starting to fidget, clearly still traumatized by whatever was done to him while he was kidnapped. The direction that the questioning was going in seemingly started to get on Izuku's nerves. Ryukyu decides to stop questioning him regarding his situation and start worrying about calming his nerves and figuring out what to do with him. "Izuku, I just want you to know that you are safe now. I don't know what happened to you or why it happened, and I will not make you talk about it if you don't want to, but now that you are with me, nothing will happen to you." Izuku tears up and gives Ryukyu a hug. "Thank you for helping me." Ryukyu is speechless. She feels the best thing she could do is return the hug, so she pulls Izuku tightly into her body. He seems to calm down upon the gentle contact. She doesn't know how to respond to Izuku's thanks. Ryukyu knows that her job as a hero is to help people, but she already feels a much deeper connection to the kid than she thought was normal. Soon after, Ryukyu's boss and the other members of her hero agency walk back into the room. Izuku slightly cowers behind Ryukyu, but he now thinks he could trust these people. After all, every member of the Precepts of Death wore the bird mask at all times, and no one was wearing a bird mask. For now, he was safe from overhaul. The adults all got together and started whispering stuff to each other. The whispering was too quiet for Izuku to hear what they were saying, but he knew they were talking about him. All the adults shot a quick glance at Izuku before Ryukyu nodded and turned to him. Hey Izuku, you're gonna stay with me for now while we decide what to do with you. Do you want that? Izuku nodded and did what must have been as close to a smile as he could manage. Ryukyu put her hand out to hold Izuku's hand. Come with me Izuku, they are gonna drive us to my house. You can stay with me for a bit. I'll sit with you in the back. Izuku follows Ryukyu into the car and settles into the comfortable seat. The overwhelming emotions of finally escaping his prison are too much for him as he begins to fall asleep once again. Izuku is still asleep when they arrive at Ryukyu's house. She doesn't want to wake him so she carries him to one of her spare rooms. Ryukyu is still very young and she had just moved into her house. The house is mostly painted white with only Ryukyu's room and the kitchen being decorated. She mentally thanks her friends for telling her to get the larger house with the extra rooms. This wasn't the first time she needed to use it and finances weren't a problem with her already lucrative position as a hero. Ryukyu gets to the guest room and places Izuku into the bed. She puts a note on the nightstand and leaves as quietly as she could. A few hours later Izuku wakes up screaming. Waking up in a different place than he fell asleep brings back the worst memories from his time with Overhaul. It doesn't help that the white room is similar enough to the room he previously stayed in. Wanting to be quiet, Izuku quickly stops screaming and tries to assess the situation he is in. He needed to figure out whether or not he needed to escape, and fast. Those fears are quickly dispelled as the note that Ryukyu left floats off the nightstand and lands on Izuku's foot. It read, "Hi Izuku, you fell asleep in the car. I brought you to a spare room in my house. Come outside and tell me if you want or need anything." Upon reading the note, memories begin flooding back to Izuku. He had escaped, he is safe now. Only a few seconds had passed since Izuku woke up and he had already forgotten that he woke up screaming. This is why he was surprised when Ryukyu rushes into the room and worryingly asks, "Is everything okay?" "Yeah, I forgot about what happened. The room I stayed in was white and I thought that I had been caught." Feeling incredibly guilty over making Izuku experience his trauma, Ryukyu says, "Izuku, we should go to the kitchen. We can get to know each other and it's still pretty early in the day, so I don't think you should go back to sleep. I wouldn't want you to mess up your sleep cycle." Izuku follows Ryukyu to her kitchen, taking in the surroundings. He sees that windows line the kitchen and that there is a door leading to the front yard. Unlike Overhaul, this room has pictures of Ryukyu smiling with unknown people. Izuku looks at the TV and sees that it is 2 in the afternoon. "So Izuku, what do you like to do for fun?" "I haven't really had much time for fun. I've gotten good at studying and analyzing quirks though. I would spend all my free time practicing my quirk. I don't have very good control of my quirk, but I can generate a lot of heat from my flames and I can regulate my body temperature very well." Izuku pointed to his scars. "They wouldn't heal the wounds that were self-inflicted, so I learned how to regulate my internal temperature when producing unnaturally hot flames." Ryukyu stays silent. Izuku is talking to her, but he doesn't seem to be thinking much about what he is saying. Ryukyu was hoping to get more information from him without having to ask questions. "They used me to test out a quirk-enhancing drug which they named Trigger. Every day they gave me a shot and my quirk would flare up. I think the drug was still in its testing stage though because each time I took the shot, I experienced the worst pain I could imagine." Izuku starts sweating, straining at what he had to experience. "Hey Izuku, you don't have to talk about it if you don't want to. I kind of got lost in thought. Poor kid. Kidnapped at 4 to be a test dummy for an unfinished quirk drug. Whoever Overhaul is, he probably had to kidnap someone since this type of drug is illegal and the testing is too painful to even find a test subject. I hope I can start a conversation that doesn't lead back to his torture." "Hey miss, what's your name? I wanna know what I should call the hero who saved me." "My name is Ryuko Tatsuma and my hero name is Ryukyu." Hearing the word hero reminds Izuku of just how much he loved heroes, giving him the courage to start asking more questions. "What's it like being a hero?" "It's very hard, but I really want to help people. I have a destructive quirk that many people are scared of and I want to show the world that I can use it to save people." "Why would people be scared of your quirk? Didn't All Might say that there are no evil quirks, just evil people?" "I don't know why anyone would think you are evil, you seem so nice. I know that you saved me and you didn't cause any destruction." Ryukyu's heart melts at the praise. She doesn't know how long she will stay with Izuku, but she wants to spoil him while he is here. Trying to think of what to do, Ryukyu realizes that there was one advantage to Izuku not being exposed to the outside world for several years. All the new video games that he would have been waiting for are out now. Ryukyu calls for Izuku to come to check out her new gaming system. The new All Might game had just come out and she had a hunch that Izuku would want to play it. She sits down on the couch and Izuku chooses to sit on the floor right in front of her. He rests his head on her knee with his hair acting as a cushion for his head. Izuku and Ryukyu settle into their respective positions and play the game for hours. Izuku chose All Might as his character and would get very excited when All Might would say I am here after he went for combos. Ryukyu chose Endeavor as her character and they breezed through the first level. Ryukyu was carrying the team as Izuku struggled to grasp the controls. Soon enough, Izuku gets more comfortable and starts beating the robots and villains alongside Ryukyu. She swears she sees him smile for an instant when he beats his first enemy on his own. They continued playing and had beaten the first 4 levels of the game when Ryukyu noticed the time was nearly 9:30. While Izuku is big, he also said that he is only 8 years old and tomorrow is going to be a stressful day for him. She tells him to get ready for bed and to brush his teeth. Ryukyu goes to get a spare toothbrush to give to Izuku and she leads him to the sink where he brushes his teeth. After doing so herself, she walks him to his room where she wishes him a good night and tells him that he could come to get her and wake her up at any time if he wants to. Izuku examines the bed before getting under the covers. He notices the lack of surroundings in the room and is still a bit unsettled by this. He had always had trouble going to sleep while under Overhaul's watch and memories of his All Might plush toy resurface. Izuku spends nearly half an hour staring at the ceiling while clutching a pillow, yet he is no closer to falling asleep than when he started. It doesn't take long after for Izuku to realize he can't fall asleep. Izuku recalls Ryukyu saying that he could go talk to her if he needed anything and based on the sounds he hears from the kitchen, she is still awake. As Izuku leaves his room, he peeks out of his barely open door and hears what appeared to be the end of Ryukyu's conversation on her phone. Thanks for wishing me a happy birthday, it's almost 10, I think I'm gonna go to sleep now. Bye. Izuku didn't know that it was Ryukyu's birthday and feels guilty that she spent her birthday caring for him. However, that doesn't deter him from wanting to ask for one final favor for the night. Knowing that he wouldn't be able to sleep with his pillow in tow, he walks up to Ryukyu. I'm sorry to bother you, Miss Ryukyu, I didn't know today was your birthday. Happy birthday. I guess I came here to say that I can't fall asleep. Ryukyu sees the passive child and figures he wouldn't be able to get his question out. Do you want to sleep in my room tonight? Izuku's eyes lit up upon hearing the question. Really, you'd let me? Of course, if it helps you fall asleep I'd gladly let you. Izuku beams as he rushes into Ryukyu's bed and curls into a tight ball. Ryukyu follows, smiling. She would never admit it to anyone, but she had gotten a bit lonely living by herself. As she gets under the covers Izuku grips her arm, holds it like a teddy bear, and falls asleep almost immediately. This kid is too precious. Best birthday ever. The next morning Ryukyu wakes up to the sight of Izuku stretching and getting ready to get out of bed. He is surprisingly upbeat given what he had to go through the previous day. Her thoughts are interrupted by the sound of Izuku's stomach rumbling. Ryukyu turns to him to see him sheepishly smiling, covering his face. She feels bad that he is embarrassed for being hungry, but the scene is cute nonetheless. To prevent any further embarrassment, Ryukyu quickly says, "Come with me Izuku, I'll get you whatever you want for breakfast." Izuku happily complies and follows Ryukyu to the kitchen. 3 full plates and 30 minutes later, Izuku lets out a content sigh, ready to start his first full day free. Ryukyu and the other heroes in the agency she works at agree that the day would be best spent if Ryukyu takes Izuku out to experience the world. There would be no need to get more information out of him today, the kid just needs to have some fun for once. Ryukyu thinks that the best place to take Izuku would be to a shopping mall and then to an amusement park. Once they arrive at the mall, Izuku is immediately blown away by the size of it. It was the biggest building he had ever seen with a glass ceiling allowing the sun to light up the whole place. Every few feet, a new store with a bright display and flashy objects catch his attention. Izuku only had a few memories of before he was kidnapped, yet knows with complete certainty he never saw anything this grand. Ryukyu glances over at Izuku and is thrilled with what she sees, he is oozing with excitement, a smile plastered on his face as his eyes dart from store to store. If he's blown away by this, I can't wait to show him the aquarium and the action figure store. He seemed really into heroes when we were playing that game yesterday, so I think he would like to look at some All Might toys. I just hope he's a bit happier once we leave. After scanning all the stores and things to do, Izuku settles on looking at the hero exhibit. He runs over to Ryukyu and tugs on her sleeve, pointing at the hero exhibit. "Come here Miss Ryukyu, I want to go there first." Ryukyu gives her biggest smile before saying, "If that's what you want to do, then we will do it. Today we do whatever you want for however long you want." Izuku enters the exhibit and is immediately met with a full-size sculpture of All Might. Izuku examines the lifelike statue and is surprised at how big All Might actually is. Izuku realizes that he didn't even reach All Might's chest as he is well over 2 feet taller than Izuku is. Izuku fondly notices the huge grin that spreads across All Might's face. That smile was one of the only things that kept him sane during his time with Overhaul. Whenever Overhaul would come in for more trigger testing, Izuku would close his eyes and remember All Might's smile, thinking that everything might one day be okay. It eventually was, as the day before, Ryukyu used All Might's line of, "I am here," after he had escaped the compound. While All Might was the world's hero, Ryukyu was his hero. Thinking about being free, Izuku wants to find a way to thank and remember her. He puts that to the back of his mind as his eyes go to examine the rest of All Might's face. The other feature of All Might that jumps out is his hair. His hair sticks up, adding to his already imposing stature. Letting civilians know that everything is going to be okay and making villains wet themselves from fear. Izuku turns to his right and sees Ryukyu smiling at him. He notices how her hair also jumps out to him. Once Ryukyu gets her own agency, her hair claw that covers her right eye will turn into a symbol as well. Her hair also gives Izuku an extra sense of comfort. He knows her quirk is powerful even though he hadn't seen it yet. Izuku has complete trust in Ryukyu to protect him if anything were to happen. Her hair shows her stoic yet caring personality. Hard and threatening on the surface yet soft and gentle to the touch. Izuku walks to the next statue. The statue was obviously going to be of Endeavor. All Might is the world's #1 hero, but the only other hero who could get anywhere near All Might's level of relevance in Japan is Japan's #2 hero, Endeavor. While there wasn't an official world hero ranking system yet, everyone considers All Might the world symbol of peace. He was the first hero to spend significant time in countries other than the hero's main country of work. He would even occasionally get called by the governments of other countries when they were dealing with a particularly tough villain. Endeavor, meanwhile, stayed only in Japan. He wasn't as much a symbol, but he had actually resolved more cases than All Might. The statue itself is just as realistic as All Might's was. Every detail of Endeavor is shown in the sculpture in front of him. How are they able to get his mustache and hair on fire? It's just like in real life. Endeavor's statue doesn't convey the same sense of safety that All Might's did. Endeavor has an imposing presence and has most of his body aflame as a show of power. Izuku feels a subtle connection to Endeavor but pays it no attention as he goes to look at the rest of the statues. Izuku and Ryukyu continue to the end of the exhibit together, having a good time as they observe the other statues. About an hour later, just as they are about to leave to go to the next exhibit, a loud explosion is heard from the ceiling of the main room. Glass shatters and falls to the ground as two men with bird masks crash through the ceiling where the glass used to be. Ryukyu notices that the bird masks that the men are wearing are the same exact mask that Izuku was wearing when he escaped the compound. Quickly looking at Izuku, she sees him recoil in fear, hiding behind her upon seeing the people. Ryukyu reassuringly tells Izuku, "Everything is going to be okay. You should hide behind the All Might statue. I'll go handle this." Izuku complies and gets behind the All Might statue, allowing only his eyes to not be hidden as to allow him to see the scene unfolding. Once Ryukyu is assured that Izuku is safe, she makes a beeline outside the exhibit toward the men. Once Ryukyu arrives, she notices two heroes fighting the masked men. The heroes are almost immediately knocked out as the men with the bird masks focus their gaze towards Ryukyu. Luckily for Ryukyu, the main room of the mall was big enough for her to use the full extent of her quirk without needing to worry about collateral damage. She quickly changes into her dragon form and rushes towards the two men. The fight is over as soon as it starts as the two men can't handle the pure power that Ryukyu possesses. She runs at the masked men and knocks them out, needing only one arm for each of them. Once the quick clash was over, the police in the mall went over to the unconscious men to detain them. They are both quickly taken away by the police. Once the brief rush of adrenaline was over, Ryukyu reverts back to her human form and rushes back to the hero exhibit where Izuku is cowering behind the All Might statue. Upon seeing Ryukyu, Izuku breaks down in tears and runs towards her. "I'm so glad you were able to beat them. Those were some of the guys that held me captive. They must have somehow known where I was. I'm so scared. How did they find me? What if you weren't here? Would they have just taken me back?" Ryukyu doesn't know how to respond to Izuku. She would never admit this to him, but she was pretty scared that some members of whatever organization kidnapped Izuku were able to find him so quickly. All she could do right now was comfort Izuku by giving him a hug. "I don't know what would have happened if I wasn't here, but that doesn't matter, because I was here. I will always be there for you. I will always be with you, and I will make sure they never take you back. I'm not gonna let this kid out of my sight. I'm gonna stay with him. How could I reasonably turn my back on someone who needs saving? This kid is too precious, and he has no one else. It's up to me to help him, and I have an idea on the best way to do so. I just hope he is as excited about the idea as I am." Ryukyu and Izuku decide to go back to her house to figure out what to do. Once they get inside, Ryukyu gets a call from her boss. Hey Ryukyu, I just got word that there was an attack at the mall where you took Izuku. Is that true? It did happen. I took out both attackers before letting the police apprehend and take in the villains. Can you confirm whether or not these men were related to whoever kidnapped Izuku? To the best of my knowledge, these men were somehow related to whatever group kidnapped Izuku. They were wearing the same bird mask that I saw him wearing right as he escaped, and he said that those were two of the guys that held him captive. Perhaps the mask was a calling card of their organization. Maybe. Izuku destroyed his mask as soon as we were safely away from the compound. Unfortunately, that is not the main reason I called. What else would you need to tell me? The two men that the police took in were both found dead in their respective cop cars. The cause of death for both of them was a very potent poison that kills a person when consumed. Both men had a lot of poison on their person. It makes us wonder what kind of tight leash this organization has on its members. They would kill themselves upon failure of the mission, even though getting caught wouldn't even have horrible consequences. We're starting to fear this organization. I am on my way to your house along with two other heroes. We will help protect the boy and figure out the next step. Until we get there, keep the boy hidden. I will take him into the room until you arrive. A few minutes later, Ryukyu hears a knock on the front door. Izuku will stay here while I go check it out. Don't come out unless I tell you to. Otherwise, stay hidden in the closet for as long as possible. Ryukyu sneaks to the front door, staying low to make it hard for someone to see inside. She looks through the window to see that it is her boss along with two of his sidekicks. The door is quickly opened as the three heroes enter the house. Ryukyu calls out to Izuku, "Izuku, it's okay, you can come out. Come sit with us at the table." Izuku is seen exiting Ryukyu's room and sitting down at the table. Ryukyu's boss breaks the silence. "Izuku, I know that you're scared, but if you want us to be able to keep you safe, we're gonna need to know everything we can about whoever kidnapped you." Izuku just nods. He knew he would have to go over the details of his torture, but he didn't think he would have to do it the day after he was free. The organization I was kidnapped by call themselves the Precepts of Death. The leader of the group is a man who goes by the name Overhaul. All members of the Precepts of Death have sworn their lives to Overhaul. I think they wear bird masks, so they won't contaminate the air that Overhaul breathes. Their main product is illegal quirk-related drug production. They made headway and perfected a drug called Trigger, which temporarily increases the strength of the user's quirk by a massive margin. They were able to perfect Trigger by using me as a test subject. That's where all my burns are from. Trigger itself would attack my body whenever I used it, and my flames would be significantly hotter than what I should have been able to produce. At the end of every session, Overhaul would disassemble and reassemble me after taking samples of my body. The scars and pain of the daily sessions were brutal, but my body thankfully adapted, so my heat tolerance is unmatched. Ryukyu is horrified by Izuku's explanation. Right as he started his explanation, he put a blank expression on his face, and it has not shifted in the slightest yet. Everyone else at the table is shocked at what the kid had gone through, yet he seemed like he wasn't even close to stopping his explanation. They have a lot of influence and control of the criminal underground, but they are not at the top. There is one group ahead of them that I was never able to hear about. I don't remember why they kidnapped me. I don't know if they know about my second quirk, but I doubt it had anything to do with the kidnapping. I think they just needed an orphan that no one cared about. They just needed someone that could disappear with minimal trace, and I was that person. After a few months, they stopped speaking to me, and I stopped speaking entirely. I think I only have this much information because they were pretty lax talking around me near the end. They must have thought I was brain dead or something. I didn't let myself show any emotion or speak for years. I was their fucking slave. I can't give descriptions of their appearances because of the bird masks, however, I doubt anyone in the organization would ever go outside without wearing some form of bird mask. Overhaul has definitely completely moved the operation already. I just need to hide from him. Amazed with the stoic and terrified expression that Izuku had during his explanation, Ryukyu's boss says, "Well Izuku, you have been very brave and have helped us a lot with understanding the motives behind today's attack. However, it is also clear that you are still in a lot of danger. I have a proposition that I think you will like." Ryukyu and Izuku both answer, "What is it?" at the same time. "Before I tell you about the good parts of my idea, I will tell you about the downsides." Izuku responded, "Just tell me everything, this is life or death for me. I want my freedom to last more than a day." "Okay." Assuming both you and Ryukyu agree to this, I think it would be best for Ryukyu to legally adopt you and for you to go into a government protection program. The boss looked at Ryukyu before continuing. "I see the way you look at it and talk about Izuku. It's clear as day that you care for the boy deeply." Ryukyu smiles and nods. Looking back at Izuku, "Of course you would also have to agree with this." Izuku cut him off while emphatically saying, "I've always wanted a mom, I trust Ryukyu with my life. I wouldn't want to be in a family with anyone else." The boss smiled before his face turned more serious. "In order for you to truly be safe from overhaul, we are going to have to fake your death. This may not seem like much at first, but it would also mean that you are going to be cut off completely from your previous life. Not only will every kid at the orphanage think that you are officially dead, but any chance of meeting your biological parents is almost entirely gone." Unsurprisingly, the already very mature 8-year-old had no problems with the plan. "I doubt my parents cared that much about me to begin with, and the orphanage didn't seem to care that I was kidnapped based on what Overhaul said. Now how are you going to fake my death? I will use some of my contacts and simply spread the word that you have been found and that you died from trauma shortly after the criminals at the mall attacked. We will make your death seem like a freak accident and it will make the papers. We will get some of the people at the orphanage to say they didn't even know you were found and they were so sad that you were only free for a day. Since Overhaul's men died and their mission was likely to kill or kidnap you, Overhaul would have no way of confirming or refuting the story." Izuku thought everything over before running to Ryukyu and wrapping her in another hug. "When can I start? I can get everything set up for you right now. I will get a hairstylist to come to the house and dye your hair. I will organize a new apartment for you and Ryukyu to live in. By tomorrow the story will be in the paper and you will likely never have to worry about Overhaul again. We will discreetly move you into the temporary apartment tonight." Ryukyu and the other heroes immediately start packing up everything in the house. Izuku would have joined them in packing, but he realizes that his only possessions were the clothes he was wearing. He decides to instead think about what he would want his hair to look like. He almost immediately knows what he wants. He decides on dyeing his hair green and yellow, leaving only a small streak of red. He wants his hair to be modeled after All Might and his new mother. He gets giddy thinking about how he will finally have a mother. He wonders if Ryukyu would let him call her mom. Izuku decides to stop letting his mind wander and for him to draw up what he wants his hair to look like. It would be dyed dark green on the right side with a lock of hair sticking up like All Might. On the left side, it would be dyed yellow with 3 locks of hair covering parts of his face, just like Ryukyu's hair does. The middle group of hairs would be kept the original red. Izuku thinks about his new look and smiles. Of the 2 stylists who came in, one of them had a quirk that kept soft objects in one place, and the other had a quirk that let her change the color of any object. This was perfect for Izuku, since he could have his hair color both changed and kept in place without the need to dye it or use gel. After having his hair changed to his liking, Izuku decides to sleep until Ryukyu is ready to leave. Soon enough Ryukyu has everything packed and is ready to leave. Ryukyu notices Izuku's hair and smiles. She was glad he looked up to her so much. The resemblance between their hair is too great for it to be a coincidence. Once they arrive at the new apartment, Ryukyu uses the keys she was given to open the door. She and Izuku step inside before she turns to him and asks, "Ready to start the next chapter of your life?" Izuku happily nods, "I've never been more excited." Thanks for watching this video. Part 1 is over. If you really enjoy this video, like, subscribe, and comment down below and turn on that bell notification. And also check out the playlist that I have created and enjoy. Link is in the description. See you in the next video. Goodbye.